So more than 191,000 workers in US based tech companies were laid off in 2023, and even more are continuing into 2024. And we were hinted at some of this about somebody was saying earlier, I think before we started, that they're really having a hard time finding tech people jobs. So what does that mean for startups? Is this a boon for startups who need talent to grow, or is this a sign of trouble in the economy and things to come, and that a lot of more small businesses are going to fail?
I think it's a good thing for startups, because I think the way startups were traditionally ran was still the Bill Gates 1980s. I think what this is doing is this is teaching our new generation of entrepreneurs, the millennials and the Gen Z, that you need to approach startup from a different modality. So I think it's a good thing, but I talked a lot, so I will yield the floor.
Will? Yeah. Well, I just kind of went through this with my business, even though we're not a tech company, so maybe not quite relevant, but just I sort of saw it from the inside, which was that the layoffs gave us this massive talent pool. So when I was hiring for my company, it was crazy. It was like all these really overqualified people wanted to work for my company, and that was wild. It was like this crazy hirer's market. But then what happened to me, of course, was that I was like, great, let's fucking go. And then I overcommitted to taking on people when I should have been more patient. That was my mistake. But it was just really interesting to sort of see that, like, my problem particularly wasn't that I lacked the talent and wasn't that I needed really good people. My problem was a structure problem, I think, which is, as Bob is alluding to, is that if I had had a more streamlined business model and go-to-market strategy, that probably would have been worth more time, energy, resources on, rather than just like collecting all this talent that was now out there and then inventing work for them, and then spending a lot of money on payroll. So that was a really sort of interesting thing that I saw as an employer, was this really exciting dearth of tech talent in the market, but then not a blessing in disguise, whatever the opposite of that is.
Fair. What are you saying, Alex?
I have mixed feelings on this one, to be honest. Like, there's the as the potential employer, and then there's the as a founder, freelancer, right? And I don't know. I think on one hand, I think having these like mass exodus and departures, unfortunately, can, for a lot of people, I think it's a bit of a kick in the pants that they need to reevaluate their own, purpose, meaning, goals, life, whatever you want to call that. And I actually think, unpopular opinion here, I think that the giant tech layoffs are actually the best way to do that, because, when you get fired or laid off on an individual basis, it's really different. It really sucks your soul dry. It's pretty difficult. Financially, you really don't know. You might be given 1 week, 2 weeks, who knows? So there is some kind of comfort in a mass layoff. You don't have to have that feeling that it's you and your personal failure. It's much like a part of a broader thing. You're usually going to get a decent package, maybe not a fortune, but depending on, again, the region, right? You're going to get a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year of comfort. A lot of the more progressive companies will also offer, which is new to me, a kind of, what's it called? It's not outsourcing. It's, there's a term for it, but agencies who will partner with you to ease the transition and help you find new roles. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of goodness that can come from it. It sucks when it happens, but I kind of think it's good. And then for a lot of those people, for a lot of people, starting your own thing, becoming a founder, or pursuing your own new venture, it's really scary. And you don't really get the opportunity to do that. It's not something that we're taught in school, right? To be a founder and entrepreneur. It's not one of the job choices that you're given. And so I think for a lot of people, it can actually be kind of cool and liberating to be oh, wow, I lost my job. What am I going to do? And it forces you, Bob, you were just saying about being creative. I think for some people, it's it kind of becomes that excuse to finally be well, wait, what do I want to do? What can I do? And it kind of is that, so I kind of think that there's a little bit of a silver lining when this happens. On the flip side, as a sometimes employer, it's, it's frustrating because you do end up with total market overwhelm. So, there goes, whoever it is, Google this day or Spotify tomorrow or whatever. I'm not saying that. I hope it's not. I hope you're all safe.
Heard it here first.
Don't get me in trouble. I know. Don't blacklist me.
Layoffs at Google. Let me change the banner.
I heard
There you
Spotify.
go.
I
We're
heard
gone now.
Spotify.
/ right. And, I just kind of hate it from an employer perspective because, it's just like, especially the last 5 years, just in the tech market and kind of the, I don't know what to call it. Like, it's really been an employee market, right? And so you have everyone, like anyone with 2 hands and coding skills was convinced that they needed to make 6 giant figures. And it really built up kind of a lot of ego and expectation. And that's wonderful. These tech giants can afford to pay that, but most of us can't. Breaking news, Craig. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Did he do it? Did he do it? Oh,
yeah.
So,
Craig,
it's just like
asterisks. Something.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the disclaimer? Don't get me in trouble. That's right. My web business.
Nobody screenshot this.
I think Alex, and sorry, Alex, I don't know if you want to keep going. I don't know if
I can talk forever. Please cut me off. Please.
Okay. I want to go back to the previous point, which is really interesting because we don't really talk about the mental health aspect. And this is only from lived experience. I by no means am an expert in mental health, but I think about a lot of these environments and watching, because I'm a TikTok guy, I watch TikTok, and watching a lot of these staffers just live in toxic environments. And they're never going to leave, because where else can you find a 6-figure salary to work from home and do coding? And I think the other good thing, although it doesn't feel good, is these layoffs and these breaks are allowing people to realize there is another world outside of their toxic office. So I think of high school. In high school, I thought that was your world. Like in high school, when my mom's like, "Don't worry, Bobby, this is not a hole here." And I was like, no, this is it. But until I got out of high school and realized, oh, there's actually more to the world than I knew. I sometimes think of that in the tech sector. I think people get so caught up in where they are in that toxicity that this forced move is actually good for some level of mental health, because now they can realize, oh, you mean I can do this and maybe I can do that. And so I just wanted to add to your first point there.
Yeah, by the way, just did a quick Google. On January 11th, Google lays off hundreds amid a pledge to reduce costs. And December 8th was Spotify lays off a bunch of people. So
no, it is fact. It's fact.
Yeah. And of course it is like, yeah. Sorry, Alex.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, on the mental health point, is like, it can be really, it can be, especially if you look at the statistics about like how many people can't afford like a sudden surprise $400 expense, right? Like, and I think, a lot of, there's that, what's the name of that dude, that CEO who's always like talking about like how shitty workers are and how stupid they are and how like
who's that? I have never heard. Who is that?
You don't know this guy? I think he must be like a troll or something. What is his name? He's always going viral for saying like the most evil rich guy kind of thing.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's the guy who said like millennials can't buy homes because they buy avocado toast. He was that dude.
Grant Cardone? Not Grant Cardone.
No. I wouldn't be surprised if that dude said something like that. But yeah, no, this guy, I can't remember who he is or what he does. But
Craig's looking it up right now.
Well, there's maybe Andy Owen.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Of
I don't want to get it wrong. But
Miller Knoll. He sparked outrage in a video where he told his staff not to worry about getting bonuses.
Is that a man or a woman?
I have no idea.
He was a man. This dude was a man. Anyways, yeah. Whoever it was, but
you broke. There we go. Yeah. But you were saying, sorry. You were saying.
No. Yeah, sorry. I was just sort of thinking that, like, I agree with you guys so much, and I don't know if you know Naval Ravikant's quote that's like, there's 7 billion people in the world. I hope someday soon to see 7 billion businesses. So this idea of like helping everybody kind of understand that like you can just, create your own work and you can go directly to a consumer or you can go to businesses, but like you can do that. And it's actually not as complicated or scary as you think. And I'm definitely on that train of like, I want more people to have that knowledge and that information and that courage and excitement, but it's just not going to be for everyone. Like, I would love that if it were, but that some people are very risk averse. Some people are very schedule oriented. Some people are really not going to want to like make a bunch of content and, Gerner, is that the dude? Yeah. But
Tim Gerner, there we go.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm definitely one of those people who's like, I grew up as an artist from a family of artists, and I had no idea how to make money, sell anything, do anything related to business or finances or anything like that. So I feel like I'm so late to the game, but so excited that I've gotten to learn all this stuff through entrepreneurship, and I would love to pass that on to as many people as possible. But yeah, certainly just on a human societal level, there's a lot of people who, if one of their parent loses a job, they're not going to be having fun.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring it down.
No, I mean, I think like that's the part that scares me, like on the employer side, right? And it's off, like I kind of feel badly saying that, but like that's the risk when you're on the employer side, is it like then you can end up hiring people and bringing people on who aren't the right fit for you. And for them, it is like a stopgap. And I get it. We're human. Like everybody has their bills to pay. You're like, I have myself and my family. I have people to take care of. Your priority is to secure some kind of income. And like, so I totally get it. But that's what I do find frustrating when this happens, is like all these massive layoffs, and then you have people who are just so desperate to like be hired and have an income. And so they pretty much will like take almost anything. And sometimes that's great because it is this like very inspired discovery, right? And they're like, you're saying, they like discover that they actually are an entrepreneur, a founder, and they're like, yes, I'm going to find my way. So that's awesome. But I think that isn't the majority of cases. I have no stats on this, of course. But, I think what happens a lot is people just taking whatever it is, they go do a job, and then, 3-6 months, they're like back out to whatever better, more stable job they found. And while I understand that and respect it for them, if you're the company, if you're the employer, like that sucks for you. Because like now I just put all my time and money and effort into hiring and training you, and you're gone, and I'm back at zero. So that kind of sucks.
I think that's very true. I don't know that, and I haven't been an employer for long, but I don't know that I see that now as much in millennials and Gen Z. What I see there is now they're part of their decision of just the package is now, do I actually like these people? And do I believe in their mission? And so I find they tend to stick around longer. Don't get me wrong. We know from statistics, which I don't have in front of me, that they do job hop. That's just the only way they find naturally how to increase their income. But I think that's the hardest part about certain layoffs, and perhaps not the Googles of the world. But remember, poop flows downhill. There were probably, like, I have to think about automotive, right? So I think about Honda, and I think when Honda or whoever does layoffs, there's always those smaller companies that Honda was their main client, and now they have to do layoffs. So I think there's also just this like, oh, I lost my security. I know whenever I've lost it, I've been fired because I suck as an employee. But like my heart was broken because I liked this vision, right? So when I get fired, it's usually not layoffs. It's usually me, Craig. But it's great. It's like, oh my God, I so loved this vision and mission. So I think there's a double heartache, right? I don't know if that's true with Google and Spotify, but definitely with sort of these secondary people that are experiencing layoffs, right?
Yeah.
Almost every manager I ever had told me I'm completely unmanageable. So I've been fired.
I think I've been
fired a few times. So.
I'm not even your manager. I think I was like, Craig.
This is a hard one because not everybody recovers, right? And all these jobs aren't coming back right away. So people got to reskill, but people aren't hiring. We were talking ahead of time talking about an HR person who was trying to get all these people jobs, but there's just not enough jobs to be filled. So that's a lot of people out there looking, and just great if they turned to entrepreneurship right away. But it's a bad time when you're 3 to 6 months into your unemployment or whatever, or your severance, and you're like, okay, maybe I can start a business. Because the first month you're not thinking that. You're a couple of months into emotional stability, and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to do something. Now, okay, I got to start a company with what money and with what ramp, and who's going to give me money now that I don't have a job? And so this becomes harder, right? Yeah, it's not impossible. It's definitely like there are a lot of jobs and startups and a lot of things out there now that you can start creating consulting work, training, get part-time gigs, come to our events and start working with startups. There's all sorts of ways to do work, but let's face it, that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And so when we have this kind of stuff drop down, the whole economy goes down because there's not enough money being spent out there. We were talking about, is this really, has the inflation stopped? Are we seeing the end of the inflation period, or are we still going to be struggling? Bob was talking about earlier, like by now we should be seeing some recovery, and we're not really seeing it.
And that was based on my lived experience, right? So I may not have Craig's experience, but I was telling him before the show, I'm like, I don't recall a time when we've not recovered. It's taken this long to recover. Now, I have not been alive that long, but I'm sure there has been historically. But yeah, it made me nervous. And if it made me nervous, I can imagine, to Craig's point, who else is getting nervous saying, anyway, sorry, Craig. I want to qualify that so people didn't be like, he's a moron.
No problem at all. And it's funny because there's a lot of layoffs before Christmas, and that sucks. But I've been in that position as a manager and having to decide, do you lay someone off early January or do you lay someone off mid-December? And it's a tough decision. And I've always fallen on the side of lay them off early, give them more severance, because here's what happens. You go into Christmas thinking everything's fine, spending all sorts of money, racking up the credit card. Then you come in on January 2nd, you get let go. How do you feel?
Yeah.
So, or do you ruin someone's Christmas and say, okay, we're going to give you a severance. I'm sorry that this is happening, but at least you know your economic situation going into what's happening.
Yeah,
and hopefully
give them agency to make their own decisions. I think that's the main thing. Like, I've seen this, not just, I felt the same way when I had to lay off people for the first time. And it was devastating, and I'd never had to do that before, but I was just kind of like, I'm going to just do it as soon as I make the decision. And because like I could sort of, not do it. Yeah. I was sort of thinking of like, do I do it in the week? And I was like, just once I've made the decision, schedule a call with them as soon as possible and let them know, because me trying to engineer their emotional response just didn't feel right. And just sort of say like, this is what it is. I'm so sorry. And now and you can do what you need to do for your life. And so, yeah, it's a really shitty thing to do.
By the way, Will, can I call out your humanity? Because I guarantee you Google and Spotify isn't giving that level of humanity to the people.
Yeah.
I'm just
well, it's easier for me because I have I'm a small business, but yeah, I agree. And that's the other thing too. We talk about automation is like the not to get too philosophical, but like
let's go.
The way that our system works is the corporate system does not put an ROI on things like humanity or compassion or, the benefit, unless it results in worker productivity or there's some, if there's some kind of benefit to the bottom line. So like, that's one of those things that why I like to work with startups in general is like, I do work with some corporate clients, and the people that I get to coach are great, but like you just see inside the machine, it's so sterile and impersonal and just devoid of humanity because it's all systematized. And so, yeah, that's the other shitty things. Did you guys see that girl who went viral from Cloudflare? I think it was.
Cloudflare,
that she was laid off by these people she never met, and they were just like, they outsourced it not to AI but to humans, but it was just as like it might as well have been a robot for like for her experience. And that sort of to me, that's that one thing of like. And what happened to me as well, to take it back to my experience, was we were doing, our whole business model was B2B, not whole business. Most of it was B2B coaching contracts. So we would do these big contracts for companies like Wayfair and Boston Dynamics. And like, we had these great contracts that I foolishly thought were just going to keep going. And, then when the bubble started bursting and these layoffs started happening, of course, public speaking, communication, coaching workshops were one of the first things on the chopping block. And so we lost a whole ton of business, which is why I had to lay the people off. So it was one of those things where the layoffs happened, the talent found its way downstream into my business. I hired, skyrocketed our expenses, and then the people we were going after were like, oh, we don't have any money for this anymore. And so I think in general, like, you gotta, cost cutting is important, but obviously if we go too far down that road, then you can just automate and make everything as optimized and efficient as possible, and then we kind of lose out like what we're trying to do as a global economy. It's like support people and make sure everybody has purchasing power and can can like buy our shit and work for our companies, and so yeah.
Sure.
I want to go before I see Craig staring. Don't switch topics because I love it. Will. I know, like, oh no, I'm not ready. Just to layer on 2 points. Well, I love what you said. They're related and not. One, I know this is TorontoStarts and we're talking about startups, and I know it's not exactly the same thing, but you just like, I'm very passionate around, discussions around small and mid-sized businesses and like the burdens that we have and that we bear compared to large corporates. And I think, Will, that's what a lot of what you just said really like hit me that way, is that like, that's kind of, there's this great inequality, and it's not intentional. Like large, massive firms, good for them. They don't set out to be jerks and to do things badly, right? It's a problem of, as you said, like success and scale. Once you hit those thresholds of a large size, like not everything can be managed the same way. But what happens is that, like exactly like you described, that it's the startups and the small businesses who are made up of, small teams of people who care. And then those are the people who end up like having the burden of, like Craig was talking about, like what's better for the person and the impact that it has on the individuals. And like, I love that, because I think that's what's special about startups and small businesses, is that they are real people with faces who care. But the problem is that, like, economically and from a management perspective, that's just like, it's so hard, right? Like, it's hard for us. It's even more difficult. Like, you already have 1,000 burdens, and like trying to care for everyone and be a good, leader and manager at the same time and run your business in a very like effective, but also, sustainable and ethical way is a challenge. And as you were saying, well, like, that's the other thing too. I think hope is not lost. I think that the more progressive large corporates and enterprises are starting to see the value. Like when we talk about sustainability and triple bottom line companies and companies who care, I think for a lot of them, it's like, for a lot of companies, of course, it's still buzzwords, and it's still like we're checking the box on, CSR, corporate responsibility, ESG, blah, blah, blah. Like, what am I doing for my board because I have to? But I do think that like truly progressive organizations are cluing in that it's not enough to just be financially profitable anymore, and that like actually dealing with the social and governance side and the environmental impacts of their work is more important, and that hopefully like will include more and more metrics that involve ethics and practices and sustainability. So hopefully we'll see, like success for big firms who can find a way to be successful and profitable and still care and like do good in the world. So like there aren't enough of them, but I think that they're out there and we can like inspire them to keep going. Yeah.